Former CBS head says network settled with Trump because he might have caught them red handed. Now, what they're talking about here is the obvious bias that was going on CBS. They know if they would have actually went to trial, then all this stuff would have came out in Discovery. The bias would have came out in Discovery because they would have had access to the emails and everything else. And to prevent that stuff from coming out, of course they settled. But we're gonna talk a little bit more about it. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things that I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my X account, so follow me there as well. All right, so let's get into this news. Now, this comes from the Daily Caller, and they report that Sherry Redstone, the former controlling shareholder of CBS's parent company, Paramount Global, said Paramount agreed to settle with President Donald Trump because of worries about what his legal team might find in Discovery, the New York Times reported on Tuesday. Paramount agreed in July to pay $16 million to Trump to settle his lawsuit pertaining to the editing of a 60 Minutes interview with former Vice President Kamala Harris. Redstone told the New York Times that CBS employees informed her that former President Joe Biden appeared exhausted and needed to be nudged to answer questions during 60 Minutes. He had to actually be nudged. Correspondent Scott Pelley's October 2023 interview with him. So let's look at this clip here. We all remember this interview from back in October, but let's play it again.
Can you foresee U.S. troops in combat in this new Middle East war?
I don't think that's necessary. Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country. I guarantee we're going to provide them everything they need.
Because of what we're seeing in the Middle East, is the threat of terrorism in the United States increased?
Yes, I had a meeting this morning with the Homeland Security people, with the FBI, for the Situation Room for the better part of an hour to discuss how we make sure that we prevent a lone wolf and or any coordinated effort to try to do what was done in synagogues before, do what was done to Jews in the street. And so we're making a major effort to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's just sad. That's just sad. Look how many times that man blinked, and he was barely looked like he could barely keep his eyes open. Towards the end, he was leaning, looked like he was gonna fall out the chair. And this is sad. So they had to nudge him to keep him awake during the interview. Do you think 60 Minutes would have done that for Donald Trump if Donald Trump was having a hard time talking and basically falling asleep during the interview? That would have been, it wouldn't have made it out of the newsroom. It would have leaked off. It would have leaked to the internet. Obvious bias. She and her son concerned that CBS could face allegations of editing in order to hide Biden's issues, according to the New York Times. Quote, this case was never a black and white, never as black and white as people assumed, Redstone told the New York Times. I didn't assume it. I mean, it's obvious what was going on. One individual who saw the interview in person, along with another who recently evaluated the raw footage, asserted that Redstone's worries were excessive and that Biden did not need to be nudged, according to the New York Times. Pelley had described Biden as appearing tired on air. Paramount said its payment, minus the legal fees, would be paid to Trump's future presidential library and consented to publish the written transcripts of future 60 Minutes interviews with presidential candidates, the New York Times reported at the time. The settlement did not feature an apology. Of course not. When you settle, you never apologize. But Trump has filed a $10 billion lawsuit against CBS News in October 2024 after the network seemed to manipulate Harris's interview with 60 Minutes just weeks prior to the November 2024 presidential election. The lawsuit, which surged to $20 billion in February, alleged that CBS News participated in deliberate deception by removing portions of Harris's response on a question about Israel in order to boost her campaign. The Federal Communications Commission, FCC, published a full unedited version of the interview in February after FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr opened an investigation in October into the editing. The full cut revealed a completely different answer from Harris than the one broadcast by the network. I mean, this obviously was edited after you look at the original. The 60 Minutes journalist Bill Whitaker asked Harris whether the U.S. had sway over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In the version of her answer that aired on 60 Minutes, Harris said, "We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about what we stand on, the need for this war to end." However, in a separate clip broadcast the day before on CBS's Face the Nation, she also said, "Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in the region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region," which means absolutely nothing. Trump's lawsuit alleged the failure to include that segment of her answer crossed the line from the exercise of judgment in reporting to deceitful, deceptive manipulation of news. Some critics suggested the decision to settle was driven by Paramount pursuing an $8 billion merger with Skydance Media. Redstone told the New York Times that she did not think about how the case would influence the merger. ABC News also paid $15 million to settle Trump's defamation lawsuit against the network in December after This Week host George Stephanopoulos falsely claimed in March 2024 that Trump was found liable for the R word. Moreover, Trump filed a lawsuit in July against Rupert Murdoch, Dow Jones and Company, Inc., News Corporation, and the two Wall Street Journal reporters who authored a piece alleging that Trump sent deceased pedo Jeffrey Epstein a suggestive letter for his 50th birthday in 2003. I'm I'm happy that Trump is doing this because this is the only way they're going to learn. The mainstream media can't continue to lie on people and expect to be no consequence or not be held accountable for those lies. So I love that he's doing it. This is why they have to settle. And a lot of news organizations are having to think twice now before they report these lies and be openly biased like this. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.